Hello everybody, and welcome to Perspectives. I'm your host Sam Jones. We're glad you're with us today. We're going to start with Teresa Runnels and Rebecca Harrison with the Tulsa City County Library. Ladies, it's good to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Glad you could make it. Make it. Huh? Loose dentures. Teresa, let's start a little bit with the with this event called Verses.
It's Rebecca's.
That's me. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
You want to kick this off?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. What is it?
So Versus is like an art and maker fair. So the goal is to bring together local makers and artists from around Tulsa County to sell their wares, to create art on site, and all of this is with the goal of raising awareness and funds for our adult literacy department at the Tulsa City County Library.
You know, it seems, I'm not going to drag you into a political discourse here, but it just seems to me like libraries get a bum rap from politicians when they don't have anybody else to pick on. They pick on the libraries. You guys must hear a lot of noise out there.
Luckily, we have a lot of big fans too, so I feel like
Yeah.
that kind of helps.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a very good thing. Well, let's get into this a little more in depth. What can folks expect to see if they attend this?
So it's going to take place at the Downtown Central Library, and we're kind of taking over the lower level of Central Library. So part of it will be outdoors in our garden space, and then we'll also have some vendors and performers inside as well. So when you walk in the door, there will be a lot of activity with artists selling their wares, and we have all kinds of artists, sculptors, people who work with textiles, painters, the full gamut. So you can browse the tables, meet the artists and speak with them, but we'll also have live performances and readings throughout the evening.
So it's possible to purchase items while they're there?
Yes,
Almost like an Indian art market.
it is definitely like a market for sure.
Well, I understand too that you're offering Osage language classes.
Yes, yes.
How did that come about?
Well, several years ago, we had Osage language classes at the Skiatook Library, and then I guess the focus kind of shifted, so they found another location, and now they're coming back. So we have a class on Tuesday nights at the Skiatook Library, and for the very first time, the Osage language department is offering a language class in the city of Tulsa. So they're very excited. We're so excited they're back and at two different locations. And the one in Tulsa is on Wednesday night at the Herman and Kate Kaiser Library at 6 o'clock.
Let me just insert one little note here. There are folk who out there will not understand. A lot of purebloods will speak to non-Indians in what seems like a halting language or a halting version of English. And what they're doing is they're translating. And I had to learn that the hard way. I spent quite a bit of time in what I call the Oklahoma Outback. With various tribes, and I've come to realize we take for granted that most folks speak English. They don't realize that when you're dealing with or talking to or being around non-whites and you're part of the English culture, the Indian culture, you're with folks that have to translate while they talk. So it becomes a real challenge at times.
Yes.
Do you see much of that?
Yes, and at the library, we're hoping that we can offer classes to kind of help alleviate that. You know, we offer as many tribal classes that are interested. You know, we work with tribal nations, and if they need a space in the library, then we offer that to them so they can work with their communities and hopefully get a more fluent language going again. It won't be fluent, but at least conversational. So we're doing what we can to help the tribes.
I think it's a great thing you're doing. And I'm especially attracted to this whole get-together. It's almost like a major, I'm serious here, a major festival of sorts, because you can get out, meet the artists and all that. Where do they park?
They'll park in the Central Library parking garage that's like adjacent to the building.
And there's plenty of space.
Oh, yes, it's several stories, so there's lots of parking available.
And again, the dates?
For Verses, it is September 28th. That's a Saturday, and it's from 6 to 9 p.m.
That should be, yeah, there'll be plenty of parking.
I think
There
so.
really will.
Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem.
And this is not your first rodeo.
This is actually our second Verses that we're offering, and it was a really big success last year, so we're excited to do it again and make it even bigger and better this year.
I think a lot of folks who pay attention and who support the library are big fans of this because I've heard about it. And although I didn't make it down last year, I may come beat on your door this year.
You should. There will be a lot to look forward to.
Are there folks that will take people in and give them individual lessons on language?
I'm sure there are. A lot of times, you can see it happening in families. So, but as far as the public, you might need to look to the tribal nations for their language departments to see what they offer. We are just a place for a shelter, I guess you could say, for tribal nations when they come into the city of Tulsa or Tulsa County, because a lot of times their boundaries do not come in that far. And the Osage Nation, their boundaries do come into Tulsa, so they're excited to actually come into Tulsa for the first time. But we offer space to all tribal nations. We want them to be able to have access to their citizens.
Well, I think it's a great thing you're doing, and I'm glad to see it all come together. And again, it's called Verses, September 28th, second year for it. And I congratulate you on the approach you're taking and the way you're making the artists available to the people, the general people. And I'm intrigued by the lessons that you offer in the language. That really is unusual.
Well, we had in class before the pandemic, and then because of the pandemic, a lot of them went virtual. But now, since we're coming out of it now more fully, they're starting to come back into the library. And this is the first class that we've had in person, a language class, since the pandemic started. So we're excited about that.
Is it okay
too.
if they bring a handheld tape recorder and record what they're taught?
I would think so, but you need to talk to the language instructor before you start taping. But
Sure.
I would think they would be fine with that.
Okay. Well, listen, thank you guys for coming in and talking to us about it. It's called Verses on the 28th of this month. And if you get a chance, be there. Lots of good things happening. Thank you both for coming in to talk about it.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you for
We
having us.
appreciate it. We're going to take a short break and come back with more right after this. And we're back. David Goldenberg is with the Tulsa Historical Society and Museum. He joins us for this segment. David, good to have you here, my friend.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
We have something on the drawing board. I understand tickets are already sold out on.
We are completely sold out. In fact, have a waiting list.
Tell us,
We're,
well, before we get into that,
Yeah.
I'm going to put that on this shelf.
Okay.
You come from where?
Connecticut.
And
Yeah, Connecticut Yankee.
What'd you do up there?
I was the senior dean of the University of Hartford for 23 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
No one should have to tolerate their dean
You-
for more than 10 years.
You speak fluent education.
I do.
I'm impressed. But your wife is from Oklahoma.
Yes, she is. I literally married an Okie from Muskogee.
Did you know?
I
Joe?
did. I did. She's a graduate of Oklahoma State. She's a marriage and family therapist, and she's got me to come out to Oklahoma.
Well, we're glad to have you.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about the Tulsa Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And I'd be interested to know how you ended up working with the Tulsa Hall.
Well, good friends of mine. I have a coffee group of lawyers and judges and entrepreneurs here in Tulsa that I have coffee with 3 days a week. And when the job opening came available to be the CEO of the museum, my wife immediately told me, but also my friends said, this is a job that would be perfect for you. And it would get you to Oklahoma full time. I was basically commuting.
So in other words, you listen to your wife.
I always listen to my wife. She's far smarter than I am.
Who are the folks that are going in this year?
Well, starting with John Erling. famous broadcaster of radio.
He's an old friend.
Yeah, and Pat Croft and Sam Combs, Phil and Marcia Mitchell, and Michelle Hardesty.
Names that ring true and folks know them.
Absolutely. I mean, they are pillars of the community in so many ways, and not in just one way. I mean, some involve foundations, some involve corporates, some involve, helping people who need it most.
I unfortunately don't know all of them. I know John well,
Yeah.
and have been a big fan of his, not in his radio days, but in the period where he started talking to people, recording the conversations.
Voices of Oklahoma.
And my wife will tell you, I've said this 100 times, I wish I'd thought of that. What a great idea.
It is. And it captures an oral history of the state.
You bet it
that
does.
is so important. You want to know what those people were thinking, what their passions were, so that you really understand the history
Certainly.
of the state.
Have you had a chance to go through the tunnels downtown?
No.
Oh, I'll tell you about that.
Okay.
We finish. I'll tell you about the tunnels. You've got to go see the tunnels. Who are the other folks, and how did they contribute to a betterment of life here?
Well, take as an example Pat Croft, who's the president of Muskogee Gaming nationwide, and has put probably $750 million into Oklahoma, $600 million into Tulsa alone. He employs about 2,200 people. But if you look, you see, okay, he's listed as a Tulsa Person of the Year, but what strikes me and holds true is that he's been consistently named one of the best CEOs there is. So that means people really like working for the man, that they're inspired to work for the man.
It makes a difference.
Oh, yes,
Makes
absolutely.
a big difference.
So he's a huge impact, probably $150 million a year in economic impact in Tulsa. So there's just one. And then Michelle Hardesty is, I think of her as a force of nature.
She is.
She's amazing. Everything, she's involved in so many things. So many foundations are so focused on doing just one thing. That's not her.
You can drive through Tulsa and see her name here and here and here.
And the impact
Yeah.
that has, the family's impact, the foundation. And, but it runs everything from things you don't see names on: animal welfare, women in recovery, working with court reform, a whole range of things that are just so important to wellness. And of course, the thing that she's very passionate about is how do you use yoga in terms of wellness? And that's her real passion these days. And it's really a pleasure to sit down and talk with her about the needs of the city and what she's contributing to do. It's really a remarkable person. We're so fortunate to have her in our community.
What about some of the others?
If we look at Phil and Marcia Mitchell, back in 1972, it was before the Americans with Disabilities Act. Their child was born blind, and there were very few resources in Tulsa. And they started the little lighthouse. And, it started with one teacher, a little wood frame house, just trying to create a resource for a child that needed it. And today, in any given year, serves 250 children.
Easily.
And everyone attends tuition free. So this is an amazing, and they all did this on a prayer and a belief and a passion to do something to help others. And so it's really a remarkable story. Absolutely love it, in terms of things. And they're such down-to-earth people who care about everyday people in so many ways.
One of the things I've always admired about the Little Lighthouse, they will open their doors to anyone.
Anybody.
with a question. They will take the time to talk with you. They will open it for tours.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do to learn more about the little lighthouse, because
Yes.
that place exploded.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
There were folks around town that had no idea there was, is there, you know, what can we do? The parents need help as well,
Oh, absolutely.
and they offer that
Parents
help.
are caregivers.
Yeah.
You don't realize how important the caregiving aspect of society is right now, and all the demands on families as caregivers.
We got about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Is there another one?
Sam Combs, who first African-American president of Oklahoma Natural Gas.
Yeah.
But he's the one who is the mind and passion behind Greenwood Rising, and really made it come together.
You know what I've always admired about him?
Right.
He has such a soft voice,
Yeah.
but man, can he move mountains.
Yeah, and don't forget, he's an owner of the Dallas Wings, and right
know.
now the WNBA is as hot as can be.
David, thank you.
My pleasure.
We
Thank
really
you for
appreciate
inviting
you coming
me.
by, and keep us posted on next year.
Absolutely. We'll be happy to do so.
You'd like to have you back again. You're a good man. I don't care what anybody says. We'll take a short break. We'll come back with more right after this. Our third guest today, and our final guest, is a very exciting topic he's going to be talking about. His name's Joe Medlin, and Joe is with the River Parks Authority. It's good to have you here, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
We're going to be talking about Zinc Lake, everything that's going into it, the new bridge that goes across the river to the west side. It just seemed to happen. It just seemed to be wham, out of the air. But it took some time to put all this in place, didn't it?
Yeah, it was about a 5-year project that included a little bit of a flood before it got started. But yes, I mean, Zinc Lake has come online, and I don't think the Tulsa residents really knew the gym they were going to have to be able to play on as soon as they got off work, Saturdays and Sundays. The rowing club being back on the water just gives you those nostalgic Ivy League
yeah.
boats going up and down first thing in the morning. It's almost just breathtaking to see that this is right in the midst of downtown and midtown.
Let's talk a little bit about the bridge itself, because, and we'll get into the ancillary things that go with that. But the bridge itself is lit at night. And I got to tell you, that's impressive.
It really is. And, you know, we had an older bridge that was very historic that I've met 10 people that got engaged on that bridge. I believe this new bridge will be exactly the same. And it's just a spectacle at night with the arches and the reflection of the water and the lights of it. And it will change color when the seasons change. Breast cancer awareness, it'll go pink. You know, 918 day, it'll be the colors of the Tulsa flag. So it changes colors to whatever we need to celebrate. And it is an amazing view of downtown. And the architects set the benches to look at downtown. And then what everyone's discovered is the wildlife in the dam to the south of it is just as breathtaking. It becomes a braided river again south of the dam. And with that brings the wildlife, the herrings, the pelican migration, and all the things that wildlife offers.
It's going to be a photographer's dream.
Yes.
Absolutely a dream. I'd be curious to know, do you get many folks down there trying to well, first of all, where they use their kayaks is not a gentle place. Do you get many guys down there from, say, out of state that come in to do this?
We do. Opening weekend, we had a young man that corresponded with us for 2-3 weeks before opening, drove in from North Carolina, used our park, made a trip just for it, and then one of the pleasures for me is I did first paddle. We got a group of local kayakers together, and when the lake opened at 4 o'clock, we paddled across the lake from West Festival Park, where Oktoberfest happens, to see the mayor cut the ribbon and the parade across the dam. And the gentleman I paddled over with was 60-something years old, came over from Arkansas, and used to perform and play and do rodeos on the original Tulsa Wave next to PSO.
Is
And
that
we
right?
paddled over together, and he played all evening and was very excited to be able to come back. So,
Well, and it's not without it hazards. So there are safety venues folks have to put into place, like, for God's sake, wear a helmet, you know, when you try to use your kayak there. But it also opens up the door to rowing, doesn't it?
oh yes. So the rowing community was coming out here to Claremore and Verdigris and using the navigational channel. That's where TU's Row House came. But we have a beautiful rowing community there at West Festival. We have a master's and a youth program, and they tripled their numbers on opening weekends of signups.
Wow.
Because they're finally able to be in the Tulsa Metro and get in their boats and row. So at 5 in the morning, just as dawn's breaking, the masters are out there rowing. And then in the afternoons, when school gets out, you have a bunch of kids out learning to row, and they have a great scholarship rate. For kids that are graduating out of their program, they're heading off to colleges and rowing for universities. So it's just another sport and another activity for the youth of Tulsa to partake in.
And how do you say scholarship? The thing I haven't heard here, and I want to press you on a little bit, is this is a 5-year dream. Who came up with the dream? Who came up with the idea of creating a lake, creating all the things that go hand in hand with that lake, as you mentioned, the rowing, the kayaking, all these things?
So it's my understanding, I'm fairly new to river parks, but I grew up in Tulsa. Knowing the history and going through the project, when the flood destroyed the original Tulsa Wave 15, 16 years ago, it finally kind of went away. The local guys that used to play on that kept pushing elected leaders to look at something, what can we do? And so there was a core group of 4 or 5 guys that just kept pushing that this is something that used to bring people in from all over the world. And they pushed, your elected leaders ran it, they proposed it, and really the citizens said, yes, this is what we want. And the citizens want a lake, and they wanted recreation, and they wanted to be able to see in downtown Tulsa that we have a body of water they can use. And then the recreational feature has been an amazing hit that I believed that would be primarily for, you know, the higher end athletes, because it looks very intimidating, as you would say. But it's not as intimidating as it looks. And so the way it's designed with the company that designed the whole wave park, it works well. It keeps you at a lower hazard than you would think you would be at, but it looks impressive. And really, water is just that tranquil thing that everybody enjoys in their life, just hearing it and seeing it. So even if you're not a whitewater person, looking down at it, walking by it, every morning we have people have coffee, sit on the rocks, and just watch the water run. That's something that you would have never imagined in the middle of an industrial city.
No, you wouldn't. And one of the other things intriguing, would you tell, we only got about 30 seconds, would you tell the little brief story about the fellow that came over from Arkansas?
Yeah, so his name was Dave, mid-60s, and we paddled across and talked the whole way. We were kind of going slow so we didn't interrupt the mayor. And he was just so excited to come back, and he paddles the Ozarks because he lives in Arkansas. Those rivers only flow when it rains. And he was just so excited to come out and do rolls and flips and spins. And he's like, it's 2 hours away. This will be my every weekend trip in the summer when our rivers are not flowing. And we've seen an influx of people from 4 to 5 states away that are coming in to use this amenity. And it's what Tulsa is.
It's just what we needed.
Yes.
Well, if you guys will figure out a way to put in a trout stream, I'll get involved. All right?
I would love that myself.
Hey, listen, thank you for coming by.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you for all you've done on this and for all your spreading of the good word about it. And I encourage folks at home, get out and see it. Walk the bridge, walk to the other side, especially when Oktoberfest hits.
It's coming.
And it's going to be on us before we know it. We're all out of time. Thank you, and thank you for joining us. See you next trip.